People often think that when someone stops reaching out, it means they don't care anymore, that they've changed, that they've become cold, distant, or selfish. But psychology tells a very different story. Most people who stop reaching out didn't want to disappear. They just got tired of being the only one trying. This behavior isn't sudden. It builds slowly, quietly, over time. And it usually comes from emotional exhaustion, not lack of love. Here are 5 deep psychological reasons why people stop reaching out. 1. Emotional burnout from one-sided effort. Have you ever noticed that you're always the one reaching out first? You're the one checking in, the one asking how they're doing, the one keeping the connection alive when it starts to fade. At first, you don't mind. You tell yourself this is just how relationships work. Someone has to try, but over time it starts to weigh on you. Psychologists describe this as a one-sided relationship, where effort, care, and emotional labor are not equally shared. Research shows that when someone gives consistently without receiving much in return, it slowly drains their emotional energy and self-worth. Not all at once, quietly, gradually. Human beings naturally operate on an emotional cost-benefit system. Not because we're selfish, but because our minds are designed to protect us. When you keep giving your time, your attention, your concern, and nothing comes back, your brain starts to register danger. Not physical danger, emotional danger. And one day, without making a dramatic decision, something shifts inside you. Reaching out no longer feels hopeful. It feels heavy. So you stop, not because you don't care, but because caring like this is costing you too much. 2. The pain of being ignored or unnoticed. There's a quiet kind of pain that comes from realizing your absence doesn't change anything. There's a difference between someone being busy and someone simply not noticing. When you reach out less and no one asks why, when no one checks in, when your silence goes unacknowledged, it feels like being slowly erased. Psychological research on ghosting shows that people often internalize silence as rejection. Even when the other person didn't intend harm, the one left waiting interprets the absence as meaning something about their worth. The mind fills the silence with questions. Did I matter? Was I ever important to them? What makes this harder is that studies also show many people who pull away still care. They just don't know how to stay present, but intent doesn't soften impact. Silence still hurts. So eventually the person who keeps reaching out learns something painful. 3. Avoidance rooted in fear, music anxiety, or emotional overload. Being ignored hurts more than being quiet, and disappearing starts to feel safer than feeling invisible. 3. Avoidance rooted in fear, anxiety, or emotional overload. Not all distance comes from indifference. Sometimes it comes from fear. For people who struggle with anxiety, low self-esteem, or emotional overwhelm, communication itself can feel threatening. Research on social withdrawal shows that some people avoid reaching out not because they don't value others, but because interaction triggers stress, self-doubt, or fear of saying the wrong thing. There's also an attachment layer here. People with avoidant tendencies often crave connection, but feel overwhelmed by emotional closeness. When feelings get too intense, their nervous system doesn't lean in, it shuts down. So when they stop reaching out, it's not always a conscious decision. It's their body choosing silence over vulnerability, their nervous system choosing distance over emotional risk. From the outside, it looks like they don't care. On the inside, they're overwhelmed and trying to breathe, for they didn't know how to say what they were feeling. Some people don't disappear because they want to hurt anyone. They disappear because they don't know how to explain themselves. Research on communication breakdowns shows that many people avoid contact simply because they feel incapable of expressing difficult emotions. They don't know how to say, I'm overwhelmed, or I need space, or I feel disconnected but don't know why. So instead of risking conflict or sounding needy, they choose silence. It's not mature. It's not fair, but it's a coping strategy. Silence becomes a way to avoid vulnerability, to avoid saying the wrong thing, to avoid opening emotions they don't know how to close again. Their retreat isn't always a lack of care. One of the hardest truths in psychology, music, is this. Some people stop reaching out because they finally choose themselves. Sometimes it's a lack of emotional language. 5. Choosing boundaries and self-respect. One of the hardest truths in psychology is this. Some people stop reaching out because they finally choose themselves. Studies on relationship dynamics show that when basic psychological needs, feeling valued, connected, and respected, aren't met, people naturally disengage to protect their well-being. This isn't selfishness, it's self-preservation. At some point, chasing effort starts to feel humiliating. Explaining yourself starts to feel pointless, and continuing to reach out feels like ignoring your own worth. So instead of begging for attention, they choose dignity. Instead of hoping for reciprocity, they step back. Instead of overgiving, they set a quiet boundary. That's not bitterness, that's growth. They still want connection. They just won't chase it anymore. It makes you wise because you finally listened to your own needs and respected your own heart. If you've ever stopped reaching out, or if you're feeling like you've been giving too much without getting anything back, know this. You are not broken. You are not cold. And you are not unworthy of love or connection. Choosing silence doesn't make you less human. It makes you wise because you finally listened to your own needs and respected your own heart. It's okay to protect your energy, to step back, and to take care of yourself first. The world will not always notice your absence, and people may not always meet you halfway, but that doesn't diminish your value. Your capacity to care, to love, and to connect is a gift. And one day, the people who are meant to be in your life will see it, appreciate it, and reciprocate it fully. Until then, let your quiet be a sanctuary, a place where you recharge, reflect, and remember that your worth is never measured by how much you give, but by who you are at your core.